Alain Delon, You're Not Who You Used to Be, Paris, 2019. A private screening room. Alain Delon, 83 years old, sat in the back row, watching himself at 30. When the lights came up, a young director turned to him and said, "You're not who you used to be." That night, something broke that had been holding for 50 years. The screening room was small, 20 velvet seats, dark walls, a projector humming above. On screen, Le Samouraï had just finished. The final frame, Jeff Costello, lying dead on a nightclub floor, 1967, frozen in Eastman color. Alain Delon sat in the back row, 83 years old, gray hair, weathered face, hands that now trembled slightly when he thought no one was looking. He'd been watching himself. The man on screen, 30 years old, moving like water, eyes like blue glass, every gesture absolutely perfect. That man was a stranger now, a stranger who happened to share his name. The lights came up slowly. 10 people in the room, a documentary crew, a young director named Laurent Mercier, producers, a cinematographer. They'd been filming Delon all week for a retrospective. Alain Delon, the last icon. That word, last, like he was already gone. Mercier stood up, turned around, notebook in hand, 28 years old, film school, confident in that way people are when they've never lost anything. "Mr. Delon, what do you see when you watch your younger self?" Alain didn't answer immediately. He was still looking at the blank screen where Jeff Costello had died 60 seconds ago. "I see a ghost," he said finally. Mercier waited for more. Alain didn't give it. "The thing about Le Samouraï," Mercier continued, "is that it defined cool for an entire generation. That walk, that trench coat, that face. You were untouchable. I was young. You were perfect. And that's when the first crack appeared." Alain's jaw tightened, barely. The kind of micro-expression only someone who'd spent 50 years controlling their face would recognize in themselves. "Nobody's perfect," Alain said quietly. Mercier smiled, not cruel, just young. "But you were close. I mean, look at you in that film. 25 years later, people are still trying to copy that character, that style, that presence." He paused. It's hard to reconcile that man with." He stopped himself. "But not fast enough." "With what?" Alain asked. His voice hadn't changed. Still that cold, controlled tone. But underneath it, something else was moving. Mercier shifted. With who you are now. You're obviously not the same person. Time changes everyone. You're not who you used to be." Silence. The room became a vacuum. 8 people stopped breathing. Alain Delon sat perfectly still, hands on the armrests, back straight, face expressionless. But inside, something ancient and carefully buried was waking up. "You're not who you used to be." 50 years of hearing it in different forms, in casting directors' eyes, in younger actors' smirks, in mirrors every morning, in the way waiters looked through him now instead of at him. But no one had ever said it to his face. Not like that. Not with that casual cruelty that belongs to people who've never watched their own power drain away year by year. "But you haven't heard the most critical detail yet." Alain stood up, slowly, every movement deliberate. The entire crew watched him rise. This old man in an expensive suit that hung slightly loose on a frame that used to fill it perfectly. "Turn the projector back on," he said. Mercier blinked. "I'm sorry, the film. Play it again. The final scene." The projectionist looked at Mercier. Mercier nodded. The lights dimmed. The projector started. On screen, Jeff Costello walks into the nightclub, pulls a gun, gets shot, falls, dies. 3 minutes. That's all it was. 3 minutes of cinema that had haunted film students for half a century. When it finished, Alain spoke. "How old are you, Laurent?" 28. "Do you know how old Melville was when he directed that?" "I know." 50. Jean-Pierre Melville was 50 years old. He'd survived the war. lost friends, lived through things you can't imagine. And when he looked at me, at that young, pretty boy everyone said was just a face, he saw something else. Alain walked down the aisle toward the screen. His gait was slower now, careful, nothing like the liquid grace of the man on screen. But he moved with the same intention. He saw death.
Stati.
Not the romantic version, the real thing, the emptiness. And he built an entire film around teaching me how to embody that void. He stopped in front of the screen.
You watch that scene and you think you're seeing perfection.
Youth, beauty, control. He turned to face the room.
Done.
But what you're actually seeing is a 50-year-old man teaching a 30-year-old boy what it means to be empty, to be nothing, to be a ghost in your own life. But what nobody knew. Mercier's face had changed. The confidence was gone. Something more careful had replaced it. I didn't mean, yes you did. Alain's voice cut clean. You meant exactly what you said. I'm not who I used to be. And you're right.
So,
He walked back up the aisle, slower, the tremor in his hands more visible now. That man on screen, he didn't know anything. He was beautiful, yes. Controlled, yes. Perfect image, yes. But inside, Alain stopped at his seat, but didn't sit. Inside he was terrified. Every day. Terrified the camera would stop loving him. Terrified directors would realize he was just a pretty face. Terrified of getting old. His voice dropped. Terrified of becoming exactly what I am now. The room was suffocating. And you know what the worst part is? Alain looked directly at Mercier. He was right to be terrified, because everything he was afraid of came true. And that's when fate intervened. Mercier stood up. Mr.
Delon, I apologize.
I spoke without thinking. Sit down. Not harsh, just absolute. Mercier sat. Alain remained standing. You're making a documentary called The Last Icon. You've been filming me for a week, following me around Paris, watching me eat, watching me walk,
Watching me forget words mid-sentence.
watching my hands shake.
Held them up.
The tremor was obvious now. You've been documenting my decay, and you think I don't know that. You think I don't see what you see. Mercier said nothing. Every morning I wake up in a body that doesn't work the way it used to. I look in a mirror and see a stranger. I watch my old films and I don't recognize that person. You're not who you used to be. I tell myself that every single day. He sat down. The movement took longer than it should have. But here's what you don't understand, Laurent. That young man on screen, the one you think was perfect, he would have given anything to be me. Confusion crossed Mercier's face, because that young man lived in constant fear. Fear of losing what he had, fear of time, fear of irrelevance. He spent every moment trying to control how people saw him, trying to be perfect, and it was exhausting. Alain leaned back. For the first time all week, he looked relaxed.
I don't have to do that anymore. You want to know who I am now?
I'm free. The thing I was terrified of happened. I got old. I lost the face, the body, the power, and I survived it. That was the moment everything shifted. One of the producers, an older woman named Sophie, spoke up.
Mr. Delon, may I ask something?
Alain nodded. Do you regret it? The youth, the beauty, knowing it couldn't last. He considered this, long, honest. I regret the fear, he said finally. I regret wasting so much time being afraid of exactly this moment. I regret not enjoying being young because I was too busy worrying about getting old. He looked at Mercier. But I don't regret getting old, because getting old means I lived, and living means changing. You're not who you used to be. Yes, thank God. Who wants to be the same person forever? Sophie leaned forward. But surely you miss it. The power, being that man on screen. I miss moving without pain. Alain said. I miss remembering names. I miss the simple mechanics of a younger body. But the man I was, he shook his head. He was a prisoner. Everything he did was for the camera, for the image, for the myth. I don't miss being him at all. But the truth was much harder. That night, after the crew left, Alain sat alone in his apartment, 16th arrondissement, large windows, view of the Seine, silence. He poured a drink, his hands shook, some spilled. He used to be able to hold a glass without thinking about it. Now every small action required concentration. The phone rang. His daughter. Papa, how was the filming? Fine. Are you okay?
You sound tired. I'm always tired now.
Papa, I'm fine, Anuchka. It was a long day. After hanging up, he walked to the window. Paris at night. The city that had made him and broken him, and made him again. His reflection in the glass. An old man. Gray. Thin. Fragile. But for the first time in years he didn't look away. What you've seen is only half the story. 2 weeks later, the documentary premiered. Alain attended. Small theater, press, critics. The same people who'd been documenting his decline for a decade. The film opened with footage from Plein Soleil, then La Samore, then Rocco, the greatest hits, the myth. Then it cut to present day. Alain walking slowly through Paris, hands shaking, voice occasionally faltering. The decay was there, visible, undeniable. But then something unexpected happened in the edit.
Oh, Mercier had intercut the old footage with the new.
Young Alain walking through 1960s. Paris became old Alain walking through modern Paris. The same streets, different man, same eyes. And somehow, in the juxtaposition you could see it. The thing that hadn't changed. The intelligence, the presence, the way he inhabited space. It was different now, quieter, slower, but it was still there. The documentary ended with the screening room scene. Alain standing in front of the screen saying, "You're not who you used to be." Yes, thank God. Who wants to be the same person forever? When the lights came up, the theater was silent. Then someone started clapping, then another, then the whole room. Alain sat in the back, confused. He hadn't expected this. He'd expected pity, documentation of decline, a eulogy for a myth. But the applause wasn't for the young man on screen. It was for the old man in the room. Just when it seemed like everything was over. At the reception after, a young actress approached. 25. Beautiful, everything he used to be. "Mr. Delon, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Does it hurt, watching yourself young, knowing you can't go back?" He looked at her carefully. "Are you afraid of getting old?" She hesitated.
Yes.
"Good. That means you understand. Time is real. That means you won't waste it. But how do you accept it? The loss." Alain smiled. A real smile. Not the star version. You don't accept it. You survive it. Day by day. And some days are harder than others. But eventually you realize the thing you lost wasn't as important as you thought. What matters is what you do with what remains. And what remains, everything that was never about the face, the work, the craft, the relationships, the truth, all the things the young man on screen was too afraid to value properly. The actress nodded slowly. "Thank you." After she left, Sophie the producer appeared. "That was kind. What you told her, it was true, was it?" Sophie studied him. "Do you really not miss being that young man?" Alain was quiet for a long moment. "Every day," he admitted. Every single day. But missing something and wanting it back are different things. "I miss being young the way you miss childhood. It was real. It mattered. But you can't go back, and trying to go back makes you miss where you are now." And the truth, the real truth, was this. 3 years later, 2022, Alain Delon announced his retirement from public life. No more interviews, no more documentaries, no more filming his decline. He released one final statement. "I've been dying in public for 20 years. I'd like to die in private now." The media went insane. Obituaries prepared. Retrospectives rushed into production. But Alain didn't die. He just disappeared into his home, into his books, into his dogs, into the quiet life the young man on screen never had time for. Occasionally photos would surface. Alain walking with a cane. Alain looking every one of his years. And each time the same comments. He's not who he used to be. So sad to see him like this. Better to remember him as he was. But the people who knew him, his children, his few close friends, they said something different. They said he seemed happy, lighter, free from the weight of being Alain Delon. Paris, August 2024. Alain Delon died at age 88, at his home in Dachi. The obituaries wrote about the legend, the icon, the most beautiful man in cinema. They showed photos from the 1960s, the face, the myth. But buried in one interview conducted years before was this quote: "People ask if I regret anything. I regret the years I spent being afraid, being perfect, being controlled. I don't regret getting old. Getting old meant I finally got to be human." At his funeral, they didn't play clips from his films. They played a recording of him laughing with his dogs. Because in the end, that's who he became. Not Jeff Costello, not Tom Ripley, not Rocco. Just an older man who'd learned that losing everything the world valued about you was the only way to find everything that actually mattered. The young man on screen was perfect. The old man in the room was real. And given the choice, the old man won.